Hello there folks, back again for another video. In this one we're going to be talking about barbarians in all their different guises. While the entire of the UK burns outside in the sun, the summer scorching sun, I thought it would be quite cool to dive into a little bit of discussion on barbarians, a little bit of Conan stuff, and sort of exploring how you could kind of play games centered around the barbarian himself and miniatures of that ilk on the tabletop. So recently I backed a Kickstarter from Tre Manor of Redbox Games, as you can see there, where they were offering up a selection of sword and sorcery style miniatures for you to use on the tabletop in your games. They're all 28mm, available in metal. And the idea with this set was to kind of start off a brand new range of figures that would expand and explore this fantasy world that Tre has been trying to put together. The core of the set and the real focus of what was a part of the warband deal, but you could buy each of these individually as well, was Thar and Zyra, as you can see there below. So you had Thar there, which is very much a kind of, I guess you'd say, analog for Conan in many regards. He's got the hairstyle, he's got the crown almost, he's got the Atlantean sword and stuff as well, which I thought was kind of badass. But obviously done slightly more to kind of mix in with what Tre wanted from his sort of sword and sorcery heroes. Then you have Zyra there, which could be used as your kind of sidekick or another hero of her own, who is a little bit of a sorcerer there, who could fight alongside him in battle. And then there was a breakdown of a selection of different hordesmen that could fight alongside Thar there, or could be used to go up against him potentially as well if you wanted to go down that route. That could be kind of cool. So there was six of those, sorry, that were the hordesmen, as you can see there, each with different weapons, shields at the ready, big rippling muscles and biceps, and bronze weapons and stuff. The other stuff that was added in, there was another 4 hunters, so if you wanted to add some skirmishers into the mix as well, you had a section of those to pick from, and they were a mix of both male and female characters, so you had 2 male and 2 female for that set. There are also a couple of different options for you to choose from. You could just go for all of the hordesmen or all of the hunters, the warband as a whole, or any mixing of them as you saw fit. As well, towards the end of the campaign, we also got a couple of additional characters mixed in. So the hordesmen, as you saw, were all men, but the folks, Tre put together 3 additional characters that were unlocked via stretch goals. So you had Weira, Roxa, and Hyperia, I guess would be the right way to say that. I'm sure someone can correct me in the comments. But anyway, you got 3 additional hordes women, I suppose, for you to throw into the mix, which were equally looking badass and as awesome as their male counterparts. I quite like the sculpting of these. It's been nice to see Tre getting back to this. Tre had a really fun section of different miniatures from Redbox. And some of the stuff is still available over on the website as well, and I'm sure these will be later on down the line. But one of the nice things about this was obviously we got the barbarian character to lead the way, which would be great for you to dive into and use on the tabletop, and his sorceress companion there, Zyra. Zyra is how you probably say it. There we go. We've sorted that one out. It's going to be really fun to get these painted up and hitting the tabletop as soon as possible. Should be delivering sometime in September, so not too long to wait for those. But this did get me thinking about games to play with these. Redbox are obviously thinking about doing a kind of a huge section of different miniatures that would fit into this style of figure on the tabletop. So you're going to have sort of apes and snake men and all sorts of different strange things like the undead and everything else in between. Lots of things that you would expect Conan or someone of his ilk to be fighting, essentially. And so I was trying to think of some cool games that could be used to represent this. Now, I kind of defaulted to looking at something like Middle-earth strategy battle game, because I was like, this seems like a good idea for playing out small skirmishes between characters. So you have someone like the mighty Thar there, who could be an analog could be used alongside, Helm Hammerhand, for example. That could be a good use of profile to sort of mirror him, and then you could just sort of build the different characters and stuff based on things that already existed, or try and come up with profiles that would match to what you had available from MESBG. The other thing I was thinking about is that there must be some games out there that are focused on this kind of gameplay. And obviously you've got things like 7TV's Fantasy, which would be really good for that, and the stuff from Crooked Dice. But there are also 2 additional rule sets that I spied that I think are actually really worth having a look at. So the first of these is actually 15mm gaming, and this is called Burning Sands, and this is the Chronicles of Erland. So this can be used for you to create all sorts of different tabletop adventures if you like. But the focus of this one is on 15mm and kind of very focused, quick fantasy gaming. You could play it as a solo endeavor, or you could play it with multiple characters. Multiple players at the tabletop, which I thought was kind of cool. And it comes with a really good system that kind of is very simple and easy to understand. So you've got your 3 stats there, which is prowess, wits, and vitality. Your prowess is your fighting ability. Your wits is how you deal with other situations, and then your vitality is both your health, and is also a great way for you to build up your pool of dice that you're going to be using to fight people in combat, which is really cool. And what you do normally when you're playing the game is that you'll roll a dice. You roll and add your vitality, and that's the kind of actions you have for the turn, which I think is kind of cool, which is a really nice way for you to kind of show off the heroic element of certain characters, whilst also dealing with the sort of like the weaklings and the minions that your characters like Erland, you want them to hack through and that kind of thing. And it means that you can really easily balance stuff as it goes through and create interesting characters and monsters and everything else in between. Sorry, it is it's hay fever season here, so you have to bear with me for 1 second. There we go. So yeah, some really awesome stuff there in Burning Sands, which is available for you to download online, which is pretty cool. And it's a good read through. It's well presented, and there's also a couple of additional things in here for people who want to follow along and maybe play their own games. So there's a breakdown of how you do all your magic and everything else in between, which I think is really good. And they've thrown in some additional bits and pieces there if you wanted to play around with your own character styles, but also if you wanted to play out a campaign. So there's this sample scenario, which was where you had Erland, the heroic individual there, holding off against a band of wolves. But then as you go through, they've added additional things in other supplements that will allow you to play through a little sort of campaign and stuff. The basis of this was to try and create quick and easy fun games through playing at 15mm. If you wanted to take this up to 28mm, from what I've been talking about with others, it seems like the idea would be you just switch things from centimeters to inches, and that will kind of do the job for you. It's an interesting system. It was one that kind of lost me a little bit at certain points where I was trying to sort of gather together how it all played. I'd actually love to try and see if I can find some videos online of people actually playing this game and sort of tinkering with it, because I think it'd be really fun to see it in action, and they'll probably give you a better idea of how it works. I like the idea of it playing at 15mm as well, because it means you don't have to swamp a table with terrain and everything like that. You could just obviously play in a small gaming area and have a lot of fun with some of the buildings and terrain and stuff that's out there. Burning Sands is definitely an option. It's not the one that I'm potentially going to go down, but I think it's a really fun one to have a look at if you're interested in small scale skirmishes and stuff on the tabletop. The other one that I found was from these chaps. So this is Crom, and this comes from Matakishi's Tea House. The reason that I like this one is that it seemed like it felt like it was built specifically for Conan. Obviously, I mean, Burning Sands was kind of done in that vein as well. But the other thing that was nice about this is that it plays in sort of that 28mm scale, but also very much something that you could play solo, which I thought was quite nice, or just with 2 players with one person controlling one hero and you controlling the other. The thing that was really nice about this, and it was a system that I quite enjoyed as I sort of delved into it, was the dice pool system that they used for this one. So in this, someone like a character model here, so Conan, for example, in this on this page, they have 12 dice that create their sort of pool that they can draw from during a game. What they do then is that they separate these dice out into pools that will then apply to both to their movement. What was it called? Yeah, movement, combat, and special. Say then, for example, you want to attack somebody, you want to move somewhere, then you will, say you assigned from Conan's pool 4 dice there, you know you need to get, say, 7 inches, right? Well, the average of 2 dice is 7, so what you might want to do is put 3 dice into that action, roll those 3 dice, you can move that many inches, right? You've then got 1 dice left over if you want to use it for something else, which is kind of cool. You then move on to the rest of that, so you've used 3 of those dice, maybe you put 5 dice into your combat ability, because you wanted to hack the head off a guard, or something like that, right? Where you roll those dice, and again, it's just a simple case of rolling to see if you beat them, essentially, in the score, the overall score, and then for each of the 6s, as you can see there, you'll do additional hits, as well as the one that you had from beating them with their score. The other thing that's nice is that in defense, the opponent is also rolling to hit you as well, so there's a real interesting kind of back and forth going on there, which I think is quite nice. The other thing that's core there as well is that you're going to have to need to retain dice to defend yourself as well. So you can't just throw everything into an attack and then care nothing about your defense, because if you do, then the enemy's just going to do a bunch of damage to you and take you out. The other thing that I really liked about this as well is that if you go back to the dice pool thing as well, when you take damage, the damage you take is burned from your dice pool, although you can also burn dice in order to do certain effects as well later on in the game, which I think is kind of cool. But say, for example, Conan is hitting some minions or whatever, and does 2 damage. Well, they lose 2 dice from their tool. They're burned from their pool, which I think is quite nice. And the same goes for you as well. Say you're defending with Conan, for example, and he gets hit and he doesn't really get through the fight as unscathed as you thought. He'd be burned out from his pool, and once that pool of dice has completely vanished, suddenly they now have no more dice to act with, and they are sort of unconscious or dead. So it's a really nice one of it's a really nice game of kind of risk and reward, and a really good back and forth between the different characters that you've got on the tabletop, which I thought was quite nice. The other thing that's really good is that you can kind of split up your actions. So they've really focused on this being a quite dynamic game, where, I was saying before how you had the 3 dice for movement. Well, you'd allocated 4 dice for movement. You'd run up. You'd got the distance you needed. You'd attacked the guard, for example, and hacked his head off. Well, you've got an extra d6 left for movement, so, okay, I'm going to roll that d6 and see how many more inches I can use to get out of combat and sneak back into the shadows before someone else sees me. So you could have you running up, cutting the head off somebody, and then dashing away before they even know what's happened, which I think is really cool. And it means that you can really play around with the narrative side of things, which is, I think, what you want with something like this, where it's very much focused on individual characters and the way that they fight. The other thing that was really good is the initiative system. So it's done with a deck of cards, which are allocated to each of the different characters or minion groups. But you can push that by sort of throwing dice into there using your special pool, which I think is quite good. Shooting works very similarly, although you only do a certain amount of damage based on because Conan's all about getting up in close combat and cutting people's heads off and arms and chopping people to pieces. It's not about getting shot from miles away and dying under a hail of arrows or whatever, which I think is quite good. The other thing that's really cool, I really liked the magic and summoning system. So they've really tried to burn in this narrative element to things. So the example they use here is all around Thulsa Doom, where they're trying to summon up something that has a particular dice pool. They have to kind of burn dice from their pool in order to summon that creature up. But, for example, as you can see here, Doom doesn't have enough dice in his pool in order to summon up the worm by himself, and so he can use things like sacrifices or other mages, cultists, for example, to summon up the creatures around them. And it kind of, again, sort of flows into the idea of narrative and storytelling on the tabletop, because then you, as a character like Conan or Red Sonja or whatever, have to run in and maybe kill enough of his cultists so that he can't summon the worm as it goes through the different phases of the game, which I thought was really cool. There's lots of sort of additional built-in things here, which is quite nice. There's a good sample selection of ways that you could build characters and monsters and things, which is good. And then there's also this really big sort of campaign for you to play through, which I think would be really nice being played solo or with 2 players. and it's really well done, actually. It's a really fun little selection of scenarios that I think would be really good to dive into and play some games with. And it's something that I think more little games like this need to do. They need to put together a series of different sort of smaller campaign-based affairs, so that when you dive in, you're not trying to have to come up with everything by yourself. You have some of the things that maybe have been play tested and things by the team that you can use to kind of give you a starting point in the game, which is always nice to see. But as you can see, loads of awesome stuff in there for you to dive into with Crom, as well as the sort of core rulebook, which is the one you see here, which was only around $6 or something, so not too bad really in the grand scheme of things. There was also the Crom Companion, which is this PDF here, which was pay what you want for it. It comes with an introductory scenario, which is pretty good, which is all about Conan and Sonya charging in, and or Sonja, however you say it, to kill a bunch of snake men, which is perfectly legitimate for Conan and his allies, and it's all about taking them out before they can summon a deadly worm. So as you can see here, the priest can call on the high priest can call on the other priests in order to summon up the creature itself, but then you have also the minions that are sort of slithering forth as well in order to fight you, which is really cool. And I think it would be really good to do as a solo adventure on the tabletop. I'm hopefully going to try and get my hands on some miniatures, actually. It would be really fun to do something like this with. And I even have some of that terrain. It's the old arcane ruins from Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It'd be really fun to have that. There's also this breakdown of how a game works, so you can actually see how things happen in Crom, and then use that to kind of give you a sort of heads up on how to dive into the game itself. There's also this nice thing about scenario design as well, which is good and kind of a nice way for you to get sort of like an aspirational look at where you could take the hobby in the future. And it's 52 pages, which is pretty awesome, especially because it's got the little build guide in there as well, which is good. So yeah, some fun stuff there from these folks at Matakishi's Tea House. If you're looking for something Conan based, I think this will be the one that I'll go for, I reckon, because I really like the dice pool system that they've done, and then the way that it flows and fluctuates, and the fact that it's been built for 28 mil and also been kind of designed with solo play in mind as well, I think is really nice. Not that any game, not that Burning Sands hasn't got that solo element to it, but I think Crom feels like the right one to go for, especially because it has that large kind of scenario to dive into as well, with Conan and the Dark Citadel following that through. Could be really fun, and it could be a nice kind of hobby adventure at the same time. But to go on such a hobby adventure, I'm also going to need some miniatures. And so obviously I'm going to be getting these barbarians and stuff coming later in the year in September, which is going to be really fun to paint them up, and I cannot wait. It's going to be really fun and a good opportunity for me to use my Balthazar gold, which is my favourite gold at the moment. But I'm also going to need some foes to face off against during these campaigns. And so one of the nice things that I thought about is snake men. Snake men seem to be something that Conan comes up against all the time. Well, it just so happens that North Star has a pretty insane selection of snake men for you to use on the tabletop if you're looking to put together an interesting collection for your barbarians to go up against. So you have some awesome models, as you can see here, looking really cool and very much nailing that Snake Man vibe that you'd want. I think it'd be really fun to paint these as well, especially using contrasted with a little bit of wet blending on the skin and the scales and stuff. But yeah, absolutely amazing miniatures for Ghost Archipelago, which would be perfect to go alongside Thar and his companions there. I really like this one as well, because you've got the big savage that could be like a bodyguard to the boss or something on the tabletop, which is quite nice. But then, as well as the metal figures, you've also got the plastic set. So this is the plastic Snake Man set, which I still think, even though it's been out for a really long time, is actually really good, and comes with a whole host of components for you to playing around with. So you've got all the different bodies there and all the different heads, and then a range of different weapons, so you could build whatever you wanted, really, which I think is quite nice. Whichever way you want to go with that. I think it'd be a good idea just to pick up maybe the Snake Men to begin with, because you want something quick and easy to assemble, that doesn't cost you too much and can be kind of chopped and changed depending on what you need for the specific occasion. So yeah, Snake Men, easily done. Lots of different things for Snake Men. Another thing that Conan tends to find himself coming up against is skeletons. So I recently watched Jason and the Argonauts again because it's an amazing film. And so I thought it'd be really fun to have a look at the skeletons that you can get from the folks at Wargames Atlantic. Their plastic kits are phenomenal anyway, but these are absolutely perfect for this kind of like sword and sorcery style affair that you'd be playing on the tabletop. It's a great sprue, once again. It's a little less fiddly than some of the other skeleton sprues out there, because you get the body and the legs attached together with the puddle base there, but then you also get the skeleton arms relatively easily crafted to attach onto the bodies as well. So it's been designed very nicely to create fun units for use on the tabletop, and also you get a bucket load of them in the set. I think it's 32 skeletons, which is perfectly suited for a horde of enemies to use on the tabletop. And they look amazing and have got that really nice Harryhausen vibe, which is perfect for what you want to be doing when it dives into sword and sorcery style combat on the tabletop. And again, really easy to paint. Snake Men, contrasts, do a little bit of blending here and there. Good stuff. Skeletons, dry brushing is the way to go. Start off with a brown or something and then dry brush up different layers of white in order to get that awesome sort of long dead skeleton look to your characters. If you're looking for some other monsters, there's also a couple of different options for you to choose from. I would recommend going over to Otherworld because they do a really nice range of sort of beasts and creatures. So again, more snakes is obviously a good way to go, and you've got some nice models there from them. If you're looking to put together some natural encounters on the tabletop, they've also got a mighty Hydra. I kind of picked this out just because I'd watched Jason and the Argonauts, but obviously you could try and find a use for that in Conan as well, I'm sure, or something Conan adjacent. It's very much a character or a creature anyway, I suppose, that would fit the theme and the setting. They also have this Dark Tower range. So the Dark Tower range has been designed based around a different role-playing game, but I think the miniatures that they do for this would be absolutely fantastic to throw into something sword and sorcery and Conan-esque. Like this Lich here, I think is just great and would be really fun to see used, sort of watching over the snake men beneath them, summoning them forth to deal with Conan and his friends, or Thar and his friends, sorry, before they got too close. You've also got Arthas there, which is kind of like half snake, half human, which is really cool. And then a range of different other characters in here as well that you could throw into the mix, including Scabhet, the chosen son of Set, and other bits and pieces there. So if you're going down that route, you've definitely got a smorgasbord of options for you to choose from, which is always good. Another one to look at as well is the fantasy range from the folks at Crooked Dice for 7TV. Obviously, again, that could be a really good range for you to use in your games anyway. But they did a range of Serpent Men, which again, absolutely perfect for games like this. But then there was also these skeleton packs, which I thought were amazing. So you've got the Serpent Men there, which are looking wonderful, and they're absolutely huge as well. So if you're looking for kind of like a mini boss for you to face up against in your games, you've got that sorted as well. So there's a spellcaster, and then there's a sort of up close and personal brute. You've also got the skeletons here as well. So if you're looking for command elements in metal to go alongside with the plastics that we were looking at earlier, you've got some really nice skeletons there. Again, very Harryhausen in their design and feel. So they'd be really awesome to drop onto the tabletop. So yeah, I'm kind of using the next little while to kind of refocus on also Titans, because Titans, oh, how cool are those? They're so small. Never mind. Yeah, Titans. Cool. Anyway, before I get too distracted, while I'm kind of waiting to dive into this, I'm sort of refocusing my priorities. I'm going to do a lot of 40k and a lot of Middle Earth over the next little while in my own hobby. I might do a kind of roundup of where I am with my hobby next week, sort of sit at the painting table and talk through some of my different projects. That is, unless they've all melted in the heat. But yeah, I've got a couple of things I've been working on, including a return to my Eldar, whilst also looking at some more Middle Earth and getting the rest of my Rohan stuff finished and ready to use on the tabletop in future games. But when September rolls around and the sun goes away, we switch from the burning orb in the sky in reality to the burning sands of the world of Conan and Sword and Sorcery. And yeah, I think I'm going to have a lot of fun painting up these different characters and bringing them to the tabletop to use with probably, as I was saying, the Crom rules from Matakeshi's tea shop. So yeah, I think they've done a really good job with that, and it could be really fun to play it. I might do a little bit more of an in-depth look at those rules maybe in the future, or maybe even play out an actual campaign, or at least part of a campaign, to see how it actually works on camera. That could be really fun. I also kind of want to come back and do another battle report for Middle Earth. That could be cool. So maybe I'll do that in the near future. But yeah, make sure to keep an eye out for what Redbox are doing, because as well as the barbarians that you see here, they're also working, as you can see here, on lizard men, mutants, ape men, revenants, otherworldly horrors, pariahs, and cultists, and the envoys of the dread god. So yeah, lots of different things for you to throw into the mix for your sword and sorcery adventures on the tabletop soon, and I'm no doubt going to be backing more of their campaigns as long as this one delivers. But yeah, they seem to be doing a good job on Kickstarter in the past, so hopefully this is exactly the same. So yeah, let me know if you backed the Redbox Games Barbaria Kickstarter, and whether or not you have your own ideas for playing a little bit of Sword and Sorcery on the tabletop. I do actually have the Conan board game, the really old one from the folks at Monolith, which is really good fun. Even to this day, still a lot of fun and definitely worth diving into and having a look at. So maybe I'll even use some of those models in the future as well, alongside these ones. But yeah, Redbox Games, Barbaria, awesome round of miniatures. Let me know what you think of the different rules that I've talked about through there, including Burning Sands and Crom. Definitely worth going and have a look at those on Wargames Vault. Go and download them and tell me what you think. And we'll be back in the future with another video, probably talking about hobby, as I said. If you like what I do, make sure to drop a comment down below and like and share and do all that good stuff. You can also drop me some donations through Ko-fi if you like as well, to help me keep going when it comes to tea and coffee and hobby supplies. But you don't have to. The main important thing is that you comment and get involved in the discussion, because I love talking with you folks. But yeah, Conan gaming on the tabletop. Let me know if there are any war games that you would fancy me taking a look at in the future as well. And yeah, I'll be back very, very soon for more chats. We're nearly at 2,000 subscribers, which will be pretty fun. I might do a little bit of a giveaway. That could be good, wouldn't it? But yeah, I'll see you folks very, very soon. Bye for now.